Hello and welcome once again to Breakfast All Day. It's a very intimate, brief affair today.
Yes.
It's just me and Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
So you were not here last week.
No.
Where were you last week?
New York.
What's happening in New York?
Well, nothing anymore. That's why I'm back here.
Oh.
No, just, movie phone planning stuff.
Okay.
Things and stuff and meetings and making stuff happen. And, all will be revealed.
Springtime in New York, a magical time of rebirth and renewal.
I did go to an excellent tiki bar and had an excellent tiki drink in a big Polynesian, or actually the name of the bar is the Polynesian, and the tiki drink came in a big mug that looked like a sugar skull.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
It's pretty cool.
Where
which I
is-
promptly ordered one, and so I have it. So I'll have to.
Good.
Maybe
So-
I'll post the picture.
Please do. Where in New York is this place?
It is in the Pod Hotel, I think is the name of it. Like 40, like roughly like 48th and like 9th.
Okay, it's a
something.
busy part of
Or-
town.
yeah.
So I'm happy to have you back. So last week it was just me and Alonzo, and if you guys were listening or watching last week, you heard that Alonzo's voice was not in great shape. He was getting
Yeah.
kind of hoarse already last week, and now he has like zero voice to the extent that he can't even do his own podcast, much less ours. So he's not here. It's just the two of us.
Just the two of us.
And
Although Dave White has enough voice for both of them.
this is
Let's point that
true.
out.
What is he? The Velvet Buzzsaw? That's the name of him. The Velvet Chainsaw is the name
The
of
Velvet Chainsaw?
Someone has dubbed his voice
Oh,
something
interesting.
like that.
Well-
Anyway,
Well, Ryan Fujitani from Rotten Tomatoes is the Velvet Smog.
okay.
That's because he's got that excellent voice.
Yes.
And he smokes. So he's the
Oh.
Velvet. Unlike Mel Torme, the Velvet Fog.
There you go.
Yeah.
It all makes sense. So, so you and I are here. We only have a couple of movies to talk about this week, and we've got some movie news to get to as well. So we're going to start out with the biggie of the week. There's great expectation for this. It is Jordan Peele's follow-up to Get Out. It is called Us. Will you please?
All right, so Us is about a family that goes on a vacation to their, I think their summer home or wherever it is in Santa Cruz. It's a kind of a vacation house. Lupita and Nyong'o and Winston Duke are the parents. They've got two beautiful kids, and they are friends with a couple that's Tim Heidecker and
Elisabeth Moss.
Elisabeth Moss, and they have two kids, Nyong'o and Duke, their family is pretty together. Moss and Heidecker kind of hate each other in that like upper middle class, we're drinking too much kind of way. And they go home one night, and there's clearly some kind of backstory to Lupita Nyong'o's character in Santa Cruz, and it becomes clearer the more time goes on, obviously. But then one night at home, there is a family outside in red jumpsuits, and they look just like the other family. They look just like us.
Yeah.
And things go crazy.
Yeah, so we have the prologue in this film is Lupita Nyong'o's character, Addie, where she's a little girl. It's the 80s. She is at the Santa Cruz boardwalk with her mom and dad. She wanders off, and something happens. And then
And I will mention, because somebody brought up that they recognized it for, I can't remember the actor's name, but if you watched the second season of Luke Cage, the guy that was kind of the Jamaican bad guy plays the Addie's father.
Okay. And so something happens there, and that will have reverberations into the story, the bulk of the story that takes place in the present day.
Right.
So it's incredibly tense. I mean, Jordan Peele has a masterful way with building suspense, and it's crafted so beautifully. Just like the visual vocabulary that he's playing with here is so, it's elegant and like muscular at the same time. I realize these are words I use a lot to describe camera work, but it's true. I mean, and it is Hitchcockian in its swagger and its bravado.
And almost like if it's at all not on your radar that he's taken over the Twilight Zone, this to me, I mean, I already thought that it was a great decision that he's going to take over the Twilight Zone and reboot it, and I'm really excited about it. But this movie makes me even more excited about that. Now, I think, though, that this one has a few, like, it doesn't quite connect the dots in a few places. Or maybe connect the dots is
I
not
think
the
it
wrong.
connects too many dots. I think it holds our hand to make us connect the dots. Whereas a bit more ambiguity as to the allegory he is trying to explore here would have been welcome for me, at least. There's a lot of explaining that goes on as to what is truly happening here. And I wish he had allowed us to perhaps go down various avenues for ourselves based on the really beautiful construct he's created for us here.
Okay. I'm not sure I agree with that part of it. I feel like there's some holes in this that don't quite add up to what is otherwise really like the craft here and the rhythm of it and the scares and the tension is absolutely all there. But there's just a couple places that it's a little like, I think some of the stuff, if you start thinking about, whereas Get Out, you come away from Get Out and you're not coming out of it like, well, wait, why did that happen? Right. And because it's self-contained and it's tight and it kind of answers whatever questions you might have up. And I think, one of the things that can bother me sometimes, and I think this bothers a lot of us about movies, is if you come away with it like, well, wait a minute, that didn't make any sense. Right. And I think a nice, tight, really well-crafted horror movie or thriller comes with enough of a script or a tight enough script that it kind of doesn't leave you like with great leaps of logic. And I think there's some of that going on here.
Well, there's a thing at the end.
Well, that too.
There's a thing at the end that changes everything you saw beforehand. And that leaves some questions.
Well, that didn't bother me as much as some of the other stuff that it's like, some of the stuff that gets set up and again, like we're dancing around this because I don't want to spoil it, but some of the stuff that requires like that's not really, it's like it's not a sustainable world that gets set up is probably the best way I could say it. But that being said, I think ultimately, like, does this movie do what it says in the box? Absolutely. Like, you're going to be
and
out
then
of your
some,
skin and then some,
and maybe too much.
And I think I came away with it thinking, oh, I'm not seeing the subtext here that I saw in Get Out, and that's probably more on me. I went, I would strongly recommend reading, I think it's Alyssa Hackman on Vox. Her review goes into some really, really awesome points about what the movie is saying, up to and including the them reference, which I had totally missed. Because them is about ants coming up out of the right.
That hadn't occurred to me.
Right.
Do we know that that's what he intended, or is she just guessing?
I think she's just guessing, but knowing what we know about Jordan Peele being the pop culture kind of fountain that he is, I can't imagine that that's unintentional. Okay. Especially the card at the very beginning.
Okay.
Right? Because I think that's, at least according to, here I am talking about a critic who's clearly smarter than I am, which is the way I talk about Christy all the time. Hackman points that out, that it's some of the same tropes. So,
okay.
Anyway, but that being said, like, in spite of the fact, my two big problems with this movie is that there's certain holes in some of the stuff that explain what's going on that I like don't add up. And then the other one is there are times when Winston Duke's accent takes me out of the movie. I'm like, oh, that's
well,
right. Now I think he's a great actor, but there's sometimes that it's like that shouldn't bother me, but it kind of does.
Okay.
But the flip side of that is Nyong'o is amazing.
Lupita's amazing. She's a monster. She just tears it up. And she also gets the opportunity, though, because there are two versions here. She gets two different versions. This is not a spoiler. This is a thing that you see in the trailer. Right. She gets an opportunity to play two characters. And they are so distinct and they are so equally well drawn that she has a much better opportunity to really dig into this material compared to the other versions of other people, perhaps.
She gets to do a thing that I think a lot of actors rarely really lean into, or maybe that's the wrong way to say it, but the most notable version of that is Tatiana Maslany that I can remember from Orphan Black, in that Maslany did this great version of, she's playing clones, and 7 or 8 different clones throughout the series at least, and you can tell which one she is by the body language alone.
Oh yeah.
And then sometimes she starts showing off because she'll then be one clone pretending to be another, and you can and she makes it work.
Tricky.
And so this is, I think, some of what you see, like the way Nyong'o can really, really inhabit these characters and vocally and facial expressions and, the emotion on both sides of them. And she's just terrific in this.
Right,
I was really, really impressed. And real quick, I just want to finish. Like, I was talking to somebody that I work with after seeing this, and Drew Taylor, who works with me at Moviephone, and he said, she'll probably get passed over for any awards consideration. And I said, yeah, kind of the way we saw with
Toni Collette and
Toni
Hereditary.
Collette, thank you. Yeah, it's
Right.
the same thing, right? Collette puts in this amazing, grounded, dramatic performance, and there's a lot of that you see. That this strong performance, up to, close to what we see out of Lupita Nyong'o in 12 Years a Slave, like that level of horror and fear. And I was really impressed.
Yeah, there's great technique on display in ways that are big and small. And Jordan Peele really gets up close to her. Like, there's a whole big section that is shot in split diopter. And the first time I saw it, I was like, ooh, split diopter.
Okay, so explain to someone like me who doesn't know what split diopter is.
When the thing in the foreground and the thing in the background are both in focus. It's a really disorienting visual trick.
That's not deep focus.
No, it's like it's a camera with two parts of a lens where you're shooting the thing in the foreground and the thing in the background. Brian De Palma does it in Carrie, for example. Okay. It's a trick. It's meant to put you on edge because your eye doesn't work that way.
For those people listening and those people watching, I have been telling Christy for years that we need to do a special series. That she should do a special series that geeks out on cinematography.
I don't really know what I'm talking about though. I only know a few things, but no.
But clearly, you know split diopter.
Because I looked it up one day.
Right, but you have a passion for it and the way things look. And I think people, in fact, if you're listening or if you're watching this, back me up here. Tell Christy that we should do that series because I think it would be amazing.
It's interesting. Thank you. So, but the point is, like that trick is meant to put you on edge because it's not how the eye functions, and so like viscerally that it's off.
Right.
He goes to that one time, and then there's a whole long monologue she gives, and it cuts back to that trick over and over again. And after like the fourth or fifth time, it's like, okay, yes, this is really cool, but you're going to this well maybe one time too many with this. Having said that, like that's the kind of a visual craft that's on display, and there's a lot of swagger to it, and so she gets the opportunity within these situations to do tiny things with her eyes, but then to do really big, scary physical things too. And I'm sure it was a thrill for her to have this kind of role. I mean, I think between this and like the performance capture stuff she gets to do in the most recent Star Wars movies, like that's got to be so fun for her to play with the notions we have about an actress who is as stunningly beautiful as she has fun with like the ugly human scary side.
The other thing I want to point out is that the kids in this are really good.
They both
too.
are, yeah. Shahadi Wright Joseph is the teenage daughter, and Evan Alex is a little boy who's probably about 10 or so, I'd say.
And these kids are tasked with playing two different characters that look exactly the same and establishing that they're two different characters without a ton of screen time. And yes, they're playing it very broad, but they make it work. And at no point do you think like, oh, those are actor tricks. Like, just the terrifying eyes from, and smile from the daughter.
Yeah.
And then, the kid is, one, the son is scared and then the other son is scary. But, with minimal dialogue, he makes that work too. Like I was really impressed with the performances these kids gave. I really like this movie. And again, like it's not quite the revelation it's not the revelation that Get Out was, but this is a really good movie.
Yes, and the thing with the kids is that it's just primal what they're giving us, and it really it's so pure. Can we talk about, without giving away what is truly happening here? Can we talk about the different themes we think he's trying to explore? And again, it's not necessarily a spoiler because race is, of course, front of mind in a lot of Jordan Peele's work, whether it's on Key and Peele, whether it's in Get Out. What do you think he is trying to explore here in terms of race relations, in terms of being black in America at this moment in time? I feel like that's what's going on, and you can interpret it a lot of different ways, but then he also kind of walks you right up to it with some of the speeches that the characters give.
So at the time, we came out of it, and I remember texting you like, I was unprepared for a movie that didn't have a lot of subtext.
Nope, it's all text. It's all there.
Well, and so but, I clearly, and here's where people get mad at me. Might have been the cocktails.
Did you drink beforehand? What did you have?
I'll neither confirm nor deny the facts of that story, Senator.
You just said the word cocktail. I didn't ask you if you drank.
A screwdriver.
You had a screwdriver.
Well, and then I had another one.
So you had two screwdrivers.
So I had 2 screwdrivers.
Okay, so did
but
that...
I have seen other movies with far more alcohol than that I have had, not just in a movie.
Okay.
Anyway.
So you were on the Elizabeth Moss and Tim Heidecker wavelength of vodka o'clock.
I might be on that now.
Okay.
Mimosas all day.
I just find that again, I stopped drinking a while ago, but I know that when I was drinking a lot that, like, I didn't remember movies very well.
Oh, I remember them.
As well as I should.
I think it's actually, like, I don't know that actually would have changed what I was seeing out of it. It was, and again, like, I keep bringing this up and I'll put the link to it. I find that I'm totally on board with what the Vox review says, because that, without giving, I'll cheat and not give anything away, like, read that. And I'm pretty much in agreement. Like, after I read that, what Hackman writes, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I totally get that.
Is her review spoilery?
Somewhat.
Okay, so there's a warning.
Somewhat, but again, like, if you've seen the trailers, if you've seen the poster, you have a pretty good idea what's going on. I mean, at least some of it, right? But does it give some stuff away? Sort of, but again, like, if, it's the thing we talk about all the time. If you're really worried about the spoilers, don't read any reviews. Don't listen to us. Like,
listen to us afterwards.
Listen to us afterwards.
Yeah. So I really love the ambition of it. And Get Out was enormously ambitious for a debut film. And this is even more so on a larger scale with a bigger budget. And I so admire that he's going for it and that he wants us to really think. He wants to jolt us, but also make us think. And it's a tough, tricky line to walk. I mean, I know people say it's elevated horror, and he has come out and said, nope, it's straight up horror. But as with a lot of the best horror and a lot of the best sci-fi, of course, there's an allegory underneath it that it wants us to explore. It wants to open our eyes to something. And this is doing that, but it's almost too much. It's almost... I wish he hadn't felt the need to give us too much. Again, like, I can't fault anybody for swinging for the fences, but it's like he could have just hit like a solid double down the left field line.
Right. Like Get Out is a part of, I think, why Get Out gets to survive as the tighter story is because it's a smaller story, right? It's not really outside of what's happening in that movie, outside of Bradley Cooper's family. Like, that's not a world-changing story. That noise you hear is Sabrina.
Sabrina's here.
Under the table. She's totally drunk. But this one ends up being, is telling a bigger story than that. More people involved. And again, I'm trying not to give too much away, but it's a bigger story, and I think it somewhat gets away from him in a little bit.
I suspect that you're going to see a lot of Halloween costumes this year.
Oh yeah,
in the red coveralls and the scissors and the
I'm sure that
sandals.
At the cons I'll be seeing people in that.
Yeah. No, I'm very mixed on it. Having said that, I've thought about it a lot, and it's disturbing on a visceral level. The woman sitting next to me, Matt did not sit with me this time, by the way. I don't know where you were sitting in the theater, but you were like on the whole other side, not where we usually sit.
Well, I was with Andrew, who we know from Young Turks.
Oh, was he there?
Yeah, he was there.
Oh, cool. Okay. I would like to have seen him.
Well, yeah, so he and I were, because he was my plus one, and we couldn't find 2 seats.
Oh, it was busy. It was crowded, yeah. So I was sitting where we always sit in the back on the right, and this woman next to me was like curled up in a ball, and over again, especially with the stuff with the daughter in the car, she's like, like it was happening to her, like she was deeply physically overwhelmed by this. So we'll be curious to hear what you guys think if you had this reaction as well. I'm saying 7.4.
Yeah, I would have thought you'd be lower than that, but I'm 7.5.
I would have thought I'd be lower than that too walking out of it, but then the more I thought about it, the more I really appreciated it, the filmmaking of it. And I appreciate him, everything he does. I love everything he does. So 7.5 is our number. It's at 95% on the tomato meter. It played like absolute gangbusters at South by Southwest when it premiered. And I feel like that's maybe part of the reaction that's occurring now that it's playing in places that aren't the Paramount Theater in Austin, because it's there's that hype. And that's a really fertile place for a film like that to debut. And so I'm sure there was great excitement in that room, which, definitely affects your experience. And then it trickles out to the rest of the world. And it's like, okay, let's have a reasonable conversation about this. So it's at 95% right now on the tomato meter, but it's pretty great. So check it out. And I'm going to now do the spiel that Alonzo usually does. Please follow us in all of the places that there are social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Be Fast All Day. We are available on iTunes and Stitcher and all your favorite podcast places.
Wherever fine podcasts are served.
We are there. So come find us there. And we appreciate you sticking around. Thanks. Bye.